All right, folks. I was actually talking about this last night on my ladies' channel because we were talking about what the era of the diesels may look like. And this is a theory that Valdez, the Angry Man, and Grinch, God P, shout out to him, came up with like last week. We actually did a couple of videos, a couple of streams on what the era of the diesel might look like. Some people think we're already in it. I disagree because while we might be heading towards it and actually being in it are two different things. Like I said, some 40 years ago, I saw a similar phenomenon in Los Angeles during the crack era, where that in our little small segment, we actually had a mini era of the diesels. We had you guys call them crack whores, we used to call them strawberries, out on the block. And actually it did plummet the price of sex. And it also had very deleterious effects on the local culture, the local black culture, a lot of which we're still feeling the effects of some 40 years later. So, but if we get into a nationwide effect or era of the diesels where I would say gather even 20% of your women are actually on the block doing that kind of thing. Because estimates of the United States say there's only like less than 1% of the women that are actually prostitutes. So what happens when it's 20 times that many, which is 20%? Or some people say 50%, or half the women are actually doing it. What would that look like? So I was doing some research on the price of prostitution because some viewer said the price of punani had plummeted. So I decided to go ahead and do some research, do some searching on Google. Shout out to Google. Google's your friend. And this is the article that stood out for me. It was actually from the New York Times talking about Greece and the aftermath, according to the women and the prostitutes, of what happened. So I'm going to read this into the record. Hopefully I can get it mostly in. If I can't, I'll shorten it. But here goes. New York Times, they don't have money. Greece's prostitutes hit hard by financial crisis. They don't have money. Athens, a prospective client walked into the narrow, dimly lit room in the basement of a broken down building in central Athens. Elena, 22, took off her robe and stood up. Evangelia, her 59-year-old fiery-tempered madam, immediately went into her pitch. My girl is flawless, Evangelia said in Greek. I recommend her without reservation. She recited the menu, and she added that with one exception, my girl does everything in bed. Without taking off her sunglasses, the paunchy middle-aged client rubbed his chin and eyed Elena, a Russian Polish prostitute, as she flipped her blonde hair and turned in her sky-high black heels. Okay, he finally said. The price, 20 euros, about $23. I was sitting a foot away on a small couch fitted with a plastic slipcover inside a brothel, witnessing this age-old transaction. We were on Phyllis Street, a warren of alleyways and dingy two-story houses, which has been home to Athenian brothels for most of the past century. The trade is more desperate now because of Greece's lost decade since the 2008 financial crisis, which has left no profession unscathed. The collapsed economy and the arrival of tens of thousands of migrants have pushed even more women into prostitution, even as prices have fallen through the floor. And for all the talk of a new era in gender relations, with women around the world speaking out and forcing a reckoning against sexual violence, #MeToo does not exist here in this room, bathed in red and purple lights, where the women are silent and their bodies are for sale, and a coffee table is loaded with condoms. I had a flower shop for 18 years, and now I'm here out of necessity, not out of joy, said Demetria, a middle-aged woman who lost her shop in the crisis and now works as a madam on Phyllis Street. I used to be called Miss Demetria, but now I've become a whore. In Greece, prostitution is legal in registered brothels, though the vast majority of brothels in Athens are unregistered. Street prostitution is illegal, yet women routinely sell sex on some street corners. While many women enter the profession out of economic necessity, others are trafficked or coerced into sex work. At studios in the Keramikos neighborhood of Athens, which houses less cheap brothels, clients can stay up to an hour. The trade is more desperate now because of Greece's financial crisis. Prostitution has increased and changed basically in the context of the new political, economic, and cultural environment, said Grigoris Lazos, a professor of criminology at Pantheon University in Athens, referring to Greece's painful economic austerity. Mr. Lazos spent 6 years researching how the country's twin crises, migration and economic austerity, had changed prostitution in Athens. He found that the number of prostitutes in the city had increased by 7% since 2012, yet prices have dropped drastically, both for women working on the streets and in brothels. Like I said, that's just a 7% increase. Now, we're talking about, in the age of the diesels, we're talking about a 2,000% increase. Anyway, continuing. In 2012, it will require an average of 39 euros for a client to hire a prostitute in a brothel, Mr. Lazos said. While in 2017, just 17 euros, a 56% decrease. According to Greek law, a brothel has to be at least 655 feet away from schools, hospitals, churches, nurseries, public squares, and other such places. But given the density of downtown Athens, it's virtually impossible to house prostitutes there legally. Mr. Lazos found that only 8 of the 798 brothels operating in the city in August were legal. The number was vastly different for the police statistics, which count no more than 300 brothels in the city. A spokesman for the Athenian police, Theodoros Chronopoulos, explained that the official number does not include hidden brothels. Mr. Chronopoulos said that officers aggressively work to break up trafficking rings, pointing to rising arrests. But police mostly leave brothels alone, he said, partly because of the sense among the authorities that they help single men deal with loneliness. We're quite tolerant when it comes to brothels, because we understand that what they do is a social service. Interesting. The police later provided an additional statement with Mr. Chronopoulos saying, "There is no tolerance when it comes to brothels. The checks are intensive and constant, and violations are applied where appropriate." None of the women I interviewed spoke of their profession as a social service. They often expressed disgust for their male clients. Evangelia, the madam where Elena works, said of the men, "They're not worthy enough of a girlfriend. They think by paying 20 euros, they buy something." Actually, they do. It's called relief. All the women insisted on using only one name because of the stigma and for safety reasons. None said that they had been forced, except by necessity, to be there. But none wanted to be here. "I hate sex," Elena said. "I like the money, not the job." It's very common. That's the difference between a real diesel and one forced into it. Anastasia, also known as Amazon to Clients, has worked as a prostitute since she was 14. She's now 33 and says the work is harder than ever. "People don't have money anymore," she said one afternoon in Sadovendo Street, outside a hotel named Easy Access, where clients have sessions that last from 10 minutes to a half hour. Anastasia says they promise, "I'll come when I get paid," or they ask for bargains. Men often ask for unprotected sex, she said, and many prostitutes who are drug addicts take on such clients for less than 10 euros. The ones that do it have AIDS, so they don't care. They're even doing it for vengeance, said Anastasia, who is in rehabilitation for drug addiction. But they've destroyed the market. As I said, they destroyed the market. That's the same thing happened in the 1980s. The number of HIV cases in Greece has actually dropped since 2012, when intravenous drug use was rampant during the height of the financial crisis. Dimitra, the head of Greece's HIV office, Greece had 628 HIV cases last year, almost half the number from 6 years ago, according to official data. In the cheaper Athenian brothels of Medjugorje, I met Monica, a 30-year-old Albanian prostitute who grew up in the northern city of Thessaloniki. She said she entered the business 10 years ago when she lived in Crete. She moved to Athens 5 years ago in search of a new life and initially worked in a tavern. She completed 1 year toward a culinary degree to become a cook and wanted to use her earnings to pay for a second year, but her boss never paid her a salary. I came here, she said of the brothel, because it's the only job that once you do it, you know you'll get paid. Today, she spends 6 to 8 hours a day trying to entice clients, but most do not stay. They don't have money. They haven't had money for the past 7 years. When she does get a client, she charges 10 euros for 10 minutes and is allowed to keep half. A few years ago, they used to tip, Monica said. They give you 20 and 50, even 100 euros if they liked it. Now, no more tips. With the Greek crisis, the clientele changed too, the women noted. They are now largely migrants, many who live in the apartments above the brothels in gritty, low-rent areas. Many Greek men are simply too poor to pay anymore. Their wages used to be 800 or 900 euros, Monica said. Now they get nothing. Besides the increase in migrant clients, Mr. Lazo's research pointed to an uptick of about 5% in Greek clientele between 2012 and 2017. It's something that a man can't quit. Manolis, a 33-year-old taxi driver and brothel regular who insisted on being identified only by his first name, whispered one afternoon on Phyllis Street. A small white light was on outside, several doors left half opened, a signal to roaming clients that a prostitute was available. Sex is like smoking, Manolis said. You'll find 20 euros for it one way or another. Despite the drop in prices, customers have become choosier. 7 or 8 years ago, 20 to 30 men would go to the bathroom with a girl, said Vaso, 65, who has been a madam for the past 20 years. Today, she said it's more like 5 or 6. Now they come back, take a look, she said, and say, I'll be back. This is the sad part of what an era of the diesels could possibly look like. And eventually, when men run out of money, it won't be important anymore. They'll kick the habit. Like I said, when men had money, even when men had money back in 2012, 20 or 30 guys would actually go in and one at a time and have sex with the woman. It was a viable trade. They could make money. But now, just like back then, prices have dropped. Like I said, the legal prostitutes make 20 euros. That's what they charge, which is, used to be absurd for them because it used to be 100. Now it's 20. And now the ones that are at the bottom or closer to the bottom charge 10 without a condom, which is the same thing that I saw back in the 80s where they charged 25 to 30. And then the drug addicted or desperate strawberries on the street charge 5. Now prices are always relative. But the thing is that what's going on now is it destroyed the relationship between men and women because the guys just stop trying. Even though they want to have sex or they want to spend some money, they don't have it. And so it continues to drive down the price. This has been since 2008. This has been 10 years. Ground the main city. We're not talking about the outlying areas. We're talking about the main city like Athens to a halt. And Greece is a small country. It's not a big country. And prostitution is legal. This is what it's going to look like during the era of the diesel, where desperate women that would love to have a job or would love to do something else, like say the Elena, the prostitute, she hates sex. Well, she hates sex, but she loves money because she likes to eat. When we get to that, what is it going to look like? And basically, now this is not a major shift. This is just a slight shift. The rate of prostitution went up 7%. So in other words, it didn't double, just a slight uptick in prostitution and the amount of prostitutes. And it drove the amount that was charged down, cratered the price. Now we're talking to people, we're talking to the ladies and the men that think that it's going to go up to 50%. 50% from 1%. We're talking about a 5,000% increase. Not a 7%, a 5,000% increase. What do you think that's going to do to the society? What do you think that's going to do to the price of sex if 50% of the women become diesel or even semi-diesel, where they will sleep with you for a price? What do you think that's going to do to male and female relationships? On my women's channel, they said it'll be as high as 90%, which is something I can't imagine that would happen without the government stepping in. Because I think if it gets up to like 20 or 30%, the government's going to step in and shut all the stuff down and actually severely repress everything if it ever gets to that. That's my opinion. Now, I could be wrong because anything could happen in this wild, wild west. You would irrevocably change the way society does business and relates if it happens. That's why I don't believe it'll happen. I don't think it'll happen. I don't think women will allow it to happen. As much as they say that they already do pay for play, I don't think that they do. But you never know. I've long since stopped being amazed about the levels that the female mind and the female morals will actually sink to. I know about the guys, but I used to think that women would never sink to a certain level, and I always get shocked when they do. So at my old age, I don't have any faith about where this will stop. I don't, according to society and the managers that manage society, I don't think they'll let it go down this far. They're already starting to try to repress the trade of sex, preventing women from actually doing this kind of stuff. That's why they actually eliminated Backpage and Craigslist and passed those two laws to actually outlaw what they call sex trafficking, to prevent women from doing this kind of stuff, to actually put some kind of handrails or safeguards on society so that it doesn't go off the rails. But you never know. Anyway, let me jump off of here. Put what you think down in the comment section. Do you think that the era of the diesels would go beyond the 1 or 2% that women are already doing? And if they do, what do you think the outcome will be? I don't think it'll go that far because, like I said, this is Greece is showing a disaster, and it was just a 7% uptick. What happens when the market in the United States get flooded with women like this? Anyway, I'm going to jump off here. This is BGS out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.